seen. Keep it down a little bit. Stole the kid's tablet while he's sleeping, so you know. But I think that next time I go to the therapist, I'm gonna show my therapist this doctor. And I'm not gonna tell her that he's a doctor. I am going to show her what he says here, and then I'm going to ask her what she would diagnose him, or what other people are getting diagnosed for saying shit like this.
Projects. Rex, you realize how time intensive this was for me? I didn't go to bed for 15 years. I didn't go to bed before 4 in the morning, and I woke up at 6 or 7. It was, I had like no sleep, nonstop. Ever since the last the last interview you had for me, it was been nonstop to do all this. The reason was we found out that nothing that the public was being given was true. Whether it was coming in, no matter from what source, it was nothing. What we have found out, and all you can see, if you actually go to our website, farsight.org, you can see our projects on the navigation menu on the side, sort of organized by themes. So you can sort of see the types of themes. We used to have them arranged in chronological order, but now they're arranged in terms of themes. And basically what we found out, this is the long story short. Rex, back in the old Egyptian days, you remember all the slaves and the pyramids and everything like that? And remember how Zeus and Ra, they didn't treat people very nicely and things like that, all that. Back in the old days, this place was being run as a very strict prison, a galactic prison. There's a story for why and how it got set up that way, but it was a prison. There was a military interaction from a different group of AGs that disrupted their ability to run it like a prison the way they used to, very overtly. And people were working with the rock, and it's like worst type of chain gang type of prison type stuff. And so but they still controlled the place, but it was behind the scenes. As it is now, that same oppressive authoritarian group of extraterrestrials, of which Ra and Zeus and all those ancient gods, they were part of it. They still control the place. This is still being run as a prison. There was an incident that we went into with our project, High Jump project, that you can see on farsightprime.com, that happened in Antarctica after World War II. It was a ruse. It was a trick. But they tricked the Americans and the Israeli government and a few other governments into signing agreements. By the way, this is not in dispute. Chaim Ashed, the former head of the Israeli Space Directorate, has openly stated that they signed the agreements and so on like that, both the U.S. and the Israeli government and others as well. And this is like, he's the former head of the Israeli Space Directorate. He's not like a small guy. Okay, he's also a retired general and a current professor. So the agreements were signed. The governments were tricked. They thought they had to sign them. But the agreements were signed that gave two groups of extraterrestrials. One group that looks like us, they look humanoid. We call them the Orions. They were Ra and Zeus, they were Orions. That was one group. And the other group we call them Reptilians. And they look just like what you can imagine, Reptilians. Here. Okay, they look like reptilians. Okay, so they signed agreements to allow them to operate on Earth in underground bases in the United States, Israel, other places. Where are these bases? Well, one of them is we did a whole project on Area 51. Area 51 has a whole bunch of levels, but if you go deep enough, you eventually get to the reptilian parts, and they are there in huge numbers. But it's not just there. They have many bases all over the place.
I hope you're enjoying the presentation thus far. If you want to listen to this in full, and I'm sure you do, check us out over at leakproject.com. We do live.
Then listen to his credentials.
With free shipping. Order yours now. Get the $200 discount as a Leak Project listener by clicking the link specific, preparewithleakproject.com. And if you want to get a 2-week food bank, only $127. Order yours today. Be prepared, not scared, and be the change you want to see, everybody. And Dr. Courtney Brown is a mathematician. He is a top remote viewer, a social scientist, a professor. And do you still work at the at Emory University in Atlanta?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, wow. And I was telling him off air, I said, Courtney, are you reverse aging or what, man? You look fantastic. But that's for a whole other podcast. Independent of his work at the university, he's also the leading scholar on the subject of remote viewing. It's done using procedures that were developed by the United States military or procedures that are derivative of those methodologies. Dr. Brown has a PhD from Washington University in St. Louis. He's published 5 peer-reviewed books and is founder of the Farsight Institute. Dr. Brown has a world-class remote viewing background, the director of the Farsight Institute, www.farsight.org, a nonprofit research and educational organization dedicated to the study of phenomenon of non-local consciousness known as remote viewing. Also, he has published peer-reviewed research on the subject in premier scientific outlets and has spoken internationally at prestigious venues, including various universities, as well as at respected gatherings of physicists. The Farsight Institute also offers a large and vibrant library of free materials on remote viewing, along with amazing remote viewings that you will not find anywhere else. We have a lot to discuss today. Dr. Courtney Brown, it's great to see you. How the heck are you?
Great. Rex, I must...
So, I'm going to paraphrase. This guy said that it took until 2022 for these cameras to come out. And this video, he literally walks you through what cameras to buy. I guess they shoot 120 frames per second. And that when you go outside, it looks like the fucking Jetsons every day, everywhere. And you can go look yourself. Let me see.
Project ourselves with regard to remote viewing. We also changed the way we did the remote viewing so that we did it on light boards. Those are $6,000 huge pieces of optical glass, and the remote viewer is dressed in black, and there's a black background, and then the glass is lit up, so when they write on the glass, it looks like they're disembodied and they're like in space writing on the glass, and the glass is fluorescent wherever they write. It looks really sci-fi-ish. It's really great. So it's a really great show for them to do that. And Yemi Janae, she likes doing things green screen. So I always put her like on a green screen and then put backgrounds in that look like the target and so on. So it turned out to be a really great movie business. But that just did about that mothership. So now we're getting to that. The final thing was the plan from the very beginning. The first thing was to build a way to present ourselves. I couldn't repurpose another group, so I had to create our own. So that just took all my time. It was nonstop. I was still a university professor. In addition to that, I had to create a movie business. So that was all my time. But then the last thing was, in order for this to work, people just can't say, oh, it's remote viewing, though. And if they don't buy into the remote viewing, even though it was accurate, even though it was real, then they wouldn't get it. So the last thing was to prove. Now, look, I'm an academic. I do math. I teach statistics. My first academic job was as a college calculus teacher. So when I use the word proof, I mean something with it. The last thing is to prove that extraterrestrials and the ETs and the UFOs are real. To prove it, not so you have to believe me, to prove it so it's independent of me, so that you can disregard what the government's saying, what the mainstream media says, because it's been proven to you. That was a tough one, but we had to wait. We had to wait until cameras became available that could do what we needed to do. the UFO ships, almost all of them are cloaked. You can't see them, even if they're right in front of you. They use cloaking technology, and they fly crazy fast. Like, we can now say we have measured them at over 20,000 miles an hour. You can't capture them with a regular camera. A, they're too fast, just a dot on the screen, and then they're off, they're gone somewhere. So we had to be able to wait until two things happened. Cameras came out that could shoot 4K, that's widescreen, that's, ultra high def type of stuff, at 120 frames a second, and in infrared. Those three things. Finally, last year, Panasonic came out with the GH6. And the GH6 allows you to shoot 120 frames a second with perfect resolution, 4K. And that's a lot of information to write 120 times on a memory card. And when you take that memory card out of the camera, it's hot to touch. It's almost like burns your finger. That's because they're writing so much information, but we had to wait. It came out in 2022. We had to then raise the money to buy those cameras. So we couldn't actually, and then somebody who actually worked he worked actually for the, he did stuff for the FAA, and he was air traffic controller, and he was a really big air traffic controller in Washington, D.C. He came to our office. He flew in on his own card, on his own ticket. He flew in and told us what we needed to do to take pictures of the UFOs. And we said, what? He came into this very office and brought in stuff, and he told us what had to be done. He told us we had to shoot fast. We had to use editing software to slow the footage down. He showed us what he did. And then we had to use infrared. So that was December of last year, okay? So then we said, okay, we're going to bite the bullet. We had to wait. We had to buy the GH6s. And each GH6, you're talking about, the camera itself is like, you can get them, the body is like $1,600, but then you have to buy $1,000 lens, and then there's certain other as bells and whistles you have to do. Then you have to send it off to be converted to a full spectrum camera so that it can be fitted with a infrared filter to get the filter red. And then you have to learn all about how to do it. Anyway, it's about a little less than $5,000 per camera to get it totally configured. So we had to get them. We have them now. And then in January of this year, we started it, just following the rules of what the guy said. First of all, the first day I went out, I did my own thing. I said, I don't need to follow those rules. I'm just going to shoot it the way I normally shoot it. I couldn't pick up anything. And then my son, Aziz, he says, no, Dad, follow exactly what he said. Shoot it in infrared, standard video, 120 frames a second. Just do exactly what he said. Duplicate what he did. And so I did it. Rex, in 10 minutes of video, we had 50 UFOs. And some of them were really low. You could see them and they would caught at 120 frames a second. We could watch them. They were right, and nothing was visible in visible light. And we watched them. You could see the cylinder shapes. You could see the configuration on the top. 10 minutes, and it was a random 10 minutes. So then we did it again. Again, the same thing. We did it again. Again, the same thing. And then we found out, and I've been one who's been studying UFOs and aliens for a long time. I didn't know that the ships were so prolific. They're everywhere. Rex, over your house right now, if you had the camera outside, 10 minutes, you'd bring it in. If you know how to process it and stuff like that, you'd see them. You don't have to be lucky. You don't have to just do it at an appropriate time. They're there all the time. So you're talking an enormous number of ships covering the entire planet. And then people say, oh, no, why don't we have just a couple of ships? Why don't they come here and appear over the White House? They are over the White House. The air traffic controller guy that came, he's from Washington, D.C. He's an air traffic control person from Washington, D.C. They're over the White House. The point is, they are cloaked. They don't want you to see them. And the only way you can see them is to capture them at 120 frames a second and slow the footage way down. Because if you don't show the footage and you're just playing it, all you say is like maybe a blink. What? There's something there? Just like tick. And then you stop it, you go back, and you slow the footage down so that you expand it. And then you see it come from one side of the screen to the other. Crazy maneuvers, incredibly fast, sharp as could be, and everywhere. So what we learn how to do is how to take pictures, or how to take videos of these. And that's the final thing of the step that we do. And that's the proof. So Rex, I cannot prove to you that UFOs are real by showing you the right picture, by showing you the perfect picture. But I can prove to you by showing you how to take your own pictures, and you take your pictures and prove to yourself on your own computer that it's there. And it's a game stopper thing. So that's what we're doing now. I'm now giving talks at universities. I have hopefully going to be giving a talk at a major university this summer. I'm doing shows like your show right now, explaining how we actually do these things. Now, people.
But there's a bunch of medical professionals who are fucking sleeping and they have their heads buried, and they're telling people that are talking about shit like this that they're fucking crazy.
People are going to ask, well, can I see some of these things? Social media has changed. People really don't always go to their computer for everything. So, Rex, do you have your phone on you?
Yeah.
Let's see what else.
Pull up Instagram. It's made of metal. It doesn't have any wings that flaps. It has, and it's clearly a craft of some type, or multiple crafts of some type, and they're not fuzzy. You know, like the famous Tic Tac video that the Navy released a little while back. How foggy it was and fuzzy it was. His videos are not foggy or fuzzy at all. They're crispy. They're sharp and crisp. So anyway, I told you to go to Instagram.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. Okay.
If some of your people want to see, like, right now, let me see some of these footage. Okay, I don't believe you. Okay, don't believe me. Go to see it. My Instagram page is Courtney Brown Farsight. One word. CourtneyBrown. Courtney Brown, no spaces, Farsight. Farsi.
Check this video out. I gotta get up. I gotta